So you had the vid, huh? First of all,
Got the
again, we
vid.
talked about this. I didn't even know that like COVID was called vid. So,
So technically speaking, it wasn't. I think I had to educate you that Kevin Hart referred to it as the vid
mm,
on a comedy. So it's always like our joke, our running joke is like, oh, you got that vid when you hear somebody having a cough. But like seriously, I think everybody believed it was like obsolete.
mm,
And it really isn't. It's for real, you guys. It came back with a vengeance. Mo was like on his deathbed for a week, and I was trying to be like the good nurse, take care of
mm,
him, do all my, precautions, PPE, and I still caught it. I was like, no,
jeez. Well, you're doing better,
awful.
but that's why we've had a bit of a setback, but we're back, right?
We're back,
So we should be
guys.
good. Yeah, when you said that, I was like, I don't know what that is. I was like, I
What
think,
virus is
yeah,
that?
I was like, is that an STD? Like, what is this?
Oh my
I
God.
don't know
And
what's
I would
going
just
on.
openly just share that. Oh yeah, I caught the vid.
I don't know. I don't know your life.
Oh, oh my God. Okay, we're cool, but we ain't that cool,
All
right?
right, all right. Why don't we jump into the show? Yeah.
Okay,
All
let's
right.
go.
Welcome to What's Good Sacramento. I'm here, Mac the Mortgage Man, with Lisa, your local Sacramento realtor. Lisa, why don't we talk about what is going on in Sacramento? What is hot? What can these loyal fans look forward to?
Good morning, Sacramento. Hi, everybody. Hey, what's good? What's hot? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's happening. You know what? I am so excited because we're just literally 10 days shy of fall,
Mm.
official fall
Dang,
season.
wow, we're
So
that
what's
close
hot?
already?
Yeah, it's crazy. I heard
Jesus.
that on the radio the other morning. I was like, no way. That's nuts. But you know what's coming to town? So there's a couple events. I mean, we still got the sun. They said we're probably not going to hit the 100 marks anymore. So we'll
Jeez.
probably settle into the 90s,
Mm.
which for Sacramentians, 90s is cool. I can't believe I say that now because I used to like freak out about the heat. But anyway, if you're up for some more like outdoorsy types of events, this 916 is bringing Diplo. So for those of you who are into like, different DJs and music artists, what is it, EDM, all that
Mm.
techno stuff, what have you, he's pretty huge and he's like a major player as far as DJs, well renowned and known, and they're bringing him locally here. It's at the end of September. So that's going to be a huge venue at the Rail Yards. I know I've mentioned that before. So if you guys aren't afraid to catch the vid and you want to be out in public with thousands of people crammed together and
Mm.
sweating and breathing all over each other, that is it for you.
I'm happy to hear that they're doing like more stuff out there, right? And you and I talked about this, I think, in another area, but how they're developing so much more out there, and there's starting to be more and more activities out in the rail yard area, which is great. And I'm hoping they're still going to build a stadium out there at some point.
Okay, so you're touching on an area that we want to trickle into in just a bit. But before we go there, there is another venue. So on the other side of the spectrum, for those of you folks that don't like the EDM, all that kind of music, they have rock, like hard rock. I'm pretty sure you've heard of this, but they've got, what is it? Oh my, Aftershock.
Mm.
Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard of Aftershock. It's huge, right, out here in Sacramento. If you haven't heard of
Mm.
Aftershock, there used to be another. I don't know if it still goes on, but it used to be a rock concert out in the Central Valley that used to happen every year. And I haven't really heard about it anymore, so maybe it doesn't happen, and this one sort of took over. But Aftershock is huge, and I'm really excited every year. And I know you're going to talk about some of the artists that are going to be out here, but one of my favorite bands, Avenged Sevenfold, which was, I think, the last concert I went to live in Sacramento when they built the new stadium or the new arena downtown.
Hmm.
And I ended up second to the front. There was one girl in front of me, and I was right there at the front, fangirling over Van
Were you
Sevenfold.
crying?
Yeah, I was crying. They're
Oh my
really
gosh,
good. Yeah, they're
me.
really good and live in rock concerts. Like, it's really hard to like top that kind of experience live up front. So yeah, I'm really excited they're going to be there. Not sure I'm going to be able to make it, but
Right.
yeah.
That's sweet. Well, they do have, I seen the whole roster. I didn't know like 98% of the artists, but Guns N' Roses and Daughtry. So those are pretty popular. So yeah, I think like for those of you who still want to get out and experience like that outdoorsy, like end of summer fun coming into fall music festivals.
Mhm.
I mean, I love music all across the board.
Right.
That one in particular, I've heard about it. Probably not my thing. I don't want to get slammed up against people or get stuck in a mosh pit. But yeah, some people love it, so
Mm.
check them out.
Well, and it's still
But
over
aside
at
from that,
Discovery
we
Park, right?
had it is actually, yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
still
is
over at Discovery
an outdoor
Park.
venue. I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a
Mm,
cool spot as well,
yeah,
right? Over there, kind of off the river, um, yeah, off of Garden Highway, I think.
highway.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes things unique to Sacramento, and that's what I want to point out. Those of you who are thinking about moving out this way, these outdoor festival venues are pretty hot. Like they just had another one. It was like kind of like a hip hop festival. They had like Kehlani and a bunch of big artists. And when I was driving over the freeway, right as you're passing over downtown, and it's kind of on the side of Garden Highway, there's this whole like grassy area. I swear I've never noticed it
Mhm.
until I seen all the pop-ups started going up. And I'm like, that is super cool. Like
Mhm.
that really looks cool too. So yeah, you guys check all that out. But just a quick little story because I think this is very relevant as we're talking about fall coming into fall season. Oh my gosh. Game day Sunday, this past Sunday, was stressful, just like this morning. It was stressful. Tell me you guys did not experience getting all your game day goodies set up, ready to go, watch my game, and you couldn't find it. You couldn't find it on any station. This has just been like chaotic. Have you heard about this?
Well, I
Like,
don't watch football, and you and I talked about this. So, for those of you that are looking to work with a realtor that spends their weekends watching football instead of trying to help you find a house, that's sort of your business. But yeah, I stopped watching football pretty much after I graduated high school. But I grew up watching football. We did the whole projector screen. We had all the games on. We had Red Zone on, and then in college, being in a fraternity, a lot of football, and then when I graduated, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna focus on building a career. And so I don't know what happened. You tell me
right,
what
right.
happened.
So on the flip side of that, some of my best clients come from social events, games, like outings, dinners. That's just how my style. But what I will say is, so we're sitting there getting ready, got all our snacks going, and it was not live on any station. So you have to actually stream it through YouTube.
Hmm.
YouTube got the ticket for NFL this season. So you have to like actually like I think sign on with them for the package deal.
That's
So like I
interesting.
was talking to yeah, like local Dish Network and some other cables, they don't have it.
Not even on
It's crazy.
like general cable.
I think for Sunday, if I may be corrected, but I think Sunday in particular, it's
Mm.
not available. I don't know if all like, because football is like Monday night
You
football,
can't
blah,
like
blah.
price out like
Dude, it's a huge thing.
that's
It's
crazy.
it's crazy. It is crazy. And YouTube, imagine YouTube. So I'm like, they're coming up. But yeah, that's my little story.
That's like the fan base, though, right? Like, because football is kind of like Rome, right? Coliseum, you're there, you're watching it, right? Not that I don't understand why football can be exciting, but like, and who goes to the Coliseum, right? Who's part of that experience, right? It's the lower and middle class individuals, and they're there, they're cheering on. That's the fan base, right? Not to say like the rich don't watch football, but you can't like exclude a big portion of the day and then be like, hey, by the way, you're gonna have to pay for this now. That's crazy. That has to
Yeah, it
be
is
somewhere
crazy.
for free.
So well, I didn't do it, Mo did it, but he streamed through, oh gosh, it's like one of these new apps for movies and stuff.
Ooh, don't get them in
Hulu,
trouble now.
Hu-
Look, you can have the FBI looking at
no,
you
Fubu,
guys.
Tubu, people will know. If you look on your TV, there's like a million new
Mm.
like subscription channels where you can find like movies that I never heard of it. But anyway, got on there. And to stream football is crazy to me because
Mm,
there's delays. There's
mm,
delays too. So whatever. That's just my whole thing about it. I'm sure people can relate and they would relate to my story this
mm.
Sunday. But that's my story of the day. But now off of that and on to the next. So what's new? What's going on back in the market? Our daily news.
Yep, that's right. So let's talk about the current market news. Now, understand there's a lot of things we can really go on. And if you've been watching the shows in the past, we're kind of developing the format a little bit, right? We really want this to be something that is interesting for you guys, something that's thought provoking. And so that sort of leads us into, some stuff that we've been getting into, right? Even though, people have been laid up and they haven't been able to do anything, they've still been doing stuff, right? They've still been getting stuff together. And obviously, we're talking about our lovely Lisa over there who got us some articles, got us some TikToks, and so we're gonna play one, and it's gonna go in pretty well to another article we went over to. Now, we'll link the article for you guys. We're not going to bring it up and go over it, but we did want to show you this TikTok video, so let's go ahead and jump into that.
The housing market is about to crash. No, it's not. It's actually nowhere close to crashing, and anyone saying it is genuinely has no idea what they're talking about. The housing market is actually doing so well that even amidst the highest interest rates in over 2 decades, there's still a housing shortage, which means people are still buying houses faster than they're able to hit the market. Not only that, but the amount of seriously delinquent mortgages just fell to the lowest point in 2 decades and is sitting at a measly 1.61%. For context, the amount of seriously delinquent loans back in 2008 was 4.5%, so we're nowhere even close to what happened back then. If you're holding out hope for a crash so that you can snatch up a cheap home, I really hope you're not holding your breath. I get how frustrating it is. I want to buy a home too, and I made the mistake of being in 8th grade the last time the housing market crashed. No one is more upset about that fact than me. So if you want a house, what it really boils down to is making sure it's the right time for you, not the market. Trying to time the market with anything is a struggle, but trying to time the housing or the stock market will drive you insane faster than practically anything.
All right, so obviously, really interesting video, Seth Goodwin. You sent that over, and you sent over an article as well. Now, the article is will the housing market crash in 2023? Experts give a 5-year predictions, and this is from Forbes, right? And so,
Mhm.
we're gonna go over some of the key points that we saw in that. We're gonna sort of think about the TikTok video, and there's a lot of videos out right now, and I think a lot of them, and I'm sure this is probably your experience, a lot of them are sort of poking fun at what's going on, right? Especially,
Somewhat.
yeah, especially the dichotomy between the boomer generation, the millennial generation, and how they got their house for nothing and they paid nothing and it's not a big deal. Now it's, 20x what they paid for it and whatever, right?
Mhm.
And we have to sort of, our job is to hone through this information and really try to help you guys navigate and understand. Although there's some joking there's some serious stuff going on in this market that needs to be considered if you guys want to become homeowners. So, why don't we talk a little bit about the housing bubble in 2008, right? We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but you had your license during this time. And if you guys aren't familiar, what essentially happened was 2008 and all the time before that, the essentially the market came to a point where there were too many bad loans on the market because there wasn't as much regulation on home loans, which is why it's so difficult now to get a home loan. It's designed to help you, but on the other end, it makes it more difficult, right? But essentially, it led to this huge market crash, and everybody essentially who was in a position, who had planned, who had been successful, or at least had been putting effort into getting ready to own a home, was able to jump onto that market. How much do you remember from the market?
I remember a lot because you know what? I was first licensed in 2002, 3.
Mm,
And when I first signed on with the brokerage, he was a mortgage broker as well. So we were really hands on. And at that time, you didn't have to really differentiate your license.
mm,
You could do like, I learned how to process loans, shop loans, things like that. So what was crazy is when you're pre-packaging these loans and getting them ready to kind of shop them through the different lenders, when you seen the stuff on paper
Mm-hmm.
in your essential client's file in comparison to what they were getting qualified for, it was like mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
So you are kind of touching on like the standard. The standard for pre-approval is very different. There's like so much red tape now in comparison to there. You could like package it in such a way where you only had to show like so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the lenders were like approving left and right. Yes, yes. So during that time, a lot of people were getting qualified for significantly higher value home loans than what
Mm-hmm.
they can really afford. And then they were going on in on these like let's say interest rates that were like 5-year fixed, right, with the arms.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, okay, cool. I'm going to get my foot in the door. I'm going to buy this house. Within 5 years, that's more than enough time. I can kind of build up my credit or my income, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stabilize and then transition into a 30-year fix. That's kind of the game plan, right? That's
Right.
the sales pitch. A lot of people got sold on that. But what happens, you go in on a short-term fix and it kicks into the adjustable, that interest rate and the monthly mortgage almost doubled, tripled in some cases for people. And it was just like, so you have that. I can't afford my monthly mortgage anymore. That's crazy. As a matter of fact, I don't even know month over month what it's going to be. It's not fixed, right? So it can slightly adjust or significantly adjust. And at that, what I bought my house for and what it's worth today, it's depreciated so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was that huge loss that people were experiencing left and right.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy, right? I mean, because you brought up the depreciation, so that was a huge factor, right? The market's tanking; these houses are worth less than they are, so it's not, you can't just sell them off. And then it isn't a seller's market, right? People aren't trying to buy houses because this mortgage crash affected our entire economy. And you had these, and not to say that adjustable rate mortgages is at least now are bad loans, but they are more tricky, right? They are considered more of a risk or a liability for lenders now. But back then it was just, the banking system and brokers maybe at the time were, how do we get as many people as we can? And not only that, they were getting perks and bonuses for putting people into more risky loans, because the idea was that the more risky the loan, the higher the interest rate would be, and the more money over time these banks and lenders would make, right? And so, really bad situation. The reason we're talking about this is we have all these people, these doom and gloom people, right? My friends, and they're saying, "Oh, the market's going to drop. The market, we're in another bubble. It's going to crash. It's going to crash." Well, is it the same situation we were in before? No, the market is far more heavy regulated. They used to be called subprime loans, but non-qualified mortgages, non-QM loans, things like this, loans that are a little more risky, they're down, right? There's not as many of them because it's so much harder. There used to be all these no income, they're called ninja loans, no income, no verification, no documentation. You want a home? Congratulations, you own a home, you figure it out from there, right? Which ultimately, you're all adults, it's your responsibility, but the mentality has changed now. And that's why a lot of times you hear Lisa and I saying, like, hey, we are here to actually help you understand what's going on, because of what did happen. It's changed the way that our profession needs to communicate with people, so they are a lot more informed, right? I mean, you would agree on that, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that also what is hugely or vastly different today in comparison to back in 2008 is that in order to get qualified, even on an ARM loan, you have to actually show income,
Mm,
have stability, be able to pay month over month. Whereas you kind of touched on different types of loans back then where you really didn't have to do a lot of verifying of
yeah.
income or, work history, things like that. So even like your FICO score, you can get in
Yeah.
and like low
It was the
sixes. It's just
golden era for lenders and realtors, right? If you came into this career, and this is a lot of where the perception is messed up, right? For people coming into real estate and loans, they think that it is how it was then, right? You come in, you're going to become a millionaire your first year. It's so easy. And it's not, especially right now, right? We're filming this 2023. We're in the middle of September. And Lisa and I have talked about this a bit. And I've been talking, and I've reached out to people. There were people hyping themselves up over the last couple of years. I'm the best realtor. Check out our checks. Look at what's going on, right? Like, hype, hype, hype. And now you look at it, and I'm like, I haven't seen these same people post in 6 months. Have you been seeing that?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that's where, we come into it from a different perspective, longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you have to ride the waves, where there's a lull or there's a decline, there's still business. There's
Mm-hmm.
still things to gain from what's happening in the market. And I think that's what our focus is, to capture that,
Yeah.
educate, prepare, because you can't just pull the trigger. You got to be prepared financially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you have a solid plan in place. So yeah, absolutely. It's not about the hype. Hey guys,
Yeah.
we're out here. I'm gonna show you a couple houses. Da, da, da. It's like, let's get smarter. Let's be smarter about
Yeah.
this, because there are things we're gonna talk about that affect
Mm-hmm.
our generation, the generation after us. And how are we going to afford to get into these houses? And I think that's why this article was attractive to both of us
Yeah.
to kind of touch it about,
Yeah.
right?
Well, this is one of the things I don't like about our industry is like, where's all the people being like, dude, I'm struggling out here. This market's crazy. I can't get anybody in the door. Like, nobody wants to do that side of the business, right? And this is one of the few instances where I actually think if you can find a part-time realtor who's been in the game for 5 years, and I say 5 years because after 4 years, you have to renew your license, and it is a pain, the education portion to renew your license. I just had to do it, and it was a lot. But if you can find a part-time realtor, the reason I think that this can be a competitive time for them is because they don't have to get the paycheck, right? So someone like yourself who is a nurse, right, and you do real estate, you're not going to lead people down the wrong way because this isn't make or break for you. You get a full-time realtor, they're out there, they might feel a little like, oh, you know what? Yeah, this is a great house. Yeah, I know the plumbing is 100 years old, but don't
Oh
worry
my
about
God.
that. It's totally going to be okay, right? So I think this is a great market for someone like that to be competitive. But let's talk about what's currently going on, right? Now, this is
Absolutely.
what frustrates me. If all of these people think the market is going to crash, we're going to go back down to 3. And again, we didn't even go down to as low as the interest rates were when the 2008 crash happened, right? It was really a drop in the price of homes. Now we had, the big COVID thing, and that brought down the interest rates. And so we're sort of seeing a pattern here, right? These big catastrophes that are causing problems, and
Mhm.
the, Federal Reserve's trying to make adjustments and regulate the total economy. And there's a lot that goes into that, but we're not in the same place. But the thing that frustrates me is even if we were in the same place and people think it's going to go down, what do they think they're going to do? Just sit and wait until it crashes and then all of a sudden they're going to be ready? This isn't going to the grocery store and buying a gallon of milk. This is $500,000 purchase that is highly regulated, difficult to get into. And you're not going to prepare right now when the market is like, you think the market's going to go bad. I don't understand that. Do you understand that at all?
No. And here's the proof in the pudding. You and I've met with a few clients. We've done our Zoom, first time buyers, roadmap to success. And those clients are steadily working on building their roadmap
Mm-hmm.
so that when they are ready, regardless of where we are in the interest rates or, appreciation, depreciation, and housing, they're going to be ready to make that purchase. And that's the right track to be on. It's not when the market crashes, I buy. It's when is the right time for me?
Mm.
And whatever's happening in the market, I'm going to adjust accordingly and then prepare for the longevity,
Right.
right? If today, when I'm ready to buy, the interest rates are a little bit higher. Well, let me get educated with my loan officer and my realtor so that I can map out in 5 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
how will I realign myself,
Yep.
right? But to get my house, get my foot in the door to a house, it should never be motivated unless you're a billionaire and you can just buy houses outright cash whenever you see
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. And I do know individuals like this
Mm-hmm.
who are just sitting back pretty waiting and they're on my roster. When the time is right, pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. But the average Joe, most of us don't have that luxury.
Right.
So my opinion is don't wait until you're this bubble, so to speak, happens. Just prepare yourself.
Yeah, and really, I think the takeaway from this is and this is not exclusively, if you can really take this to the bank for anything in your life, the people that win are the people that are prepared. And that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. And for those of you who want to get into a house, and keep in mind, we understand there are very rich people who don't own homes, right? They're totally comfortable with renting and that's where they're at. Maybe they travel a lot, whatever the situation. We understand that. But if you want to own a home, now is the time to start preparing. Doesn't matter where you're at. You could have no savings. You can have the worst credit, right? We are going to help you get into a position because when the market does shift, you want to be one of those people. And we saw this with Cal Heffa, right? And this is really, I think, the most infuriating part of this profession as a whole is people just don't want to take a good look at what's going on with their finances, which is understandable, right? Because the market's crazy. It's hard to live right now. But you know, we have all these people who they want to buy a house, but they don't want to get the information, they don't want to get the knowledge, and they don't want to do the work. And I think that is really telling of what's going on in society right now. We'd rather post videos about, you know, how it's, you know, oh, it sucks. It sucks for it sucks. It's hard work to get a home, right? It's hard work, and you're going to have to put in hard work.
Let me piggyback you because I love that you're bringing this up. On a personal note, you say nobody wants to talk personal. I'll be the first to say rebuilding your credit is no joke. Like since I looked up and I've been steadily um, rebuilding my
Mm,
personal credit. And I'm going to share this with the universe. Finally made it back up past the 700 mark. It is like amazing to me.
mm,
And, you know, life throws you for loops and you go through different things. And this could touch some people today. You know, you might go through loss of a loved one, a divorcing, or whatever, and you get set back and you think it's nearly impossible to see yourself rebuilding. I'm telling you firsthand, if you are very diligent about working towards your goals, and I have lots of goals, writing them down, talking to two individuals like us, and start mapping it out. We talk about FICO scores and the importance of, jobs and all these things. It is very relevant. And I understand that clearly. And I've been steadily working on it for the past like 2 years. And I'm finally at a point where I'm like, yeah, the light. And, debt to income ratio, you talk about that a lot. I've literally just been crunching numbers and just building. And I'm telling you, you guys, this stuff works. But as you said yourself, it's those who are prepared. So prepare yourself. Don't
mm.
look at those numbers and get discouraged and say it'll never be me. That's not true.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to put in the work, the sweat to rebuild, right?
Yeah.
Or if you haven't had a loss, start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
And
I
the way you're
think,
going to get there is by learning.
sorry, excuse me. I think that a lot of times people think because like of where we're at and what we're doing, like we don't get it, right? We're disconnected from the reality of what's going on in the market. And, we don't share a lot of personal things about ourselves. And that's just because we're trying to get you guys information. We're not trying to hide anything, but, I grew up as poor as you could potentially grow up, right? So I'm in I didn't come from money. I didn't like stumble into money. I had to work 2 or 3 jobs to get through college and grad school. And, I've been working my butt off then. So I get it, right? And luckily for me, I was taught very young how important credit was. So I was the type of person that I would rather not eat, right? And I've gone 2, 3, 4 days without eating so I can pay bills. So my credit wasn't messed up, right? that's sometimes, unfortunately, the sacrifices we have to make to live in California and to live in America. It's tragic. It's terrible. I've been there, but it's time to really crunch down. And so, what's going on in the market now, right? Obviously, rates are going up. And we suspect that they're going to continue to go up. Now, the next rate hike, because of the job reports that have been coming back, the inflation reports that have been coming back, it seems like there's potentially going to be a pause. But there's still a lot of people that think that we're going to see rates go up into the eights and to the nines. And so we'll see. We're not wizards and witches and warlocks, but we're gonna see where it's at. But I can tell you, we're not primed for a crash, right? That's just not where the market is. Now, where we are and what the future is going to look like is what we're really trying to get people to understand. There are multi-million dollar investment firms that have billions of dollars set aside to purchase up your single family homes.
Those opportunists, that's what we were talking about, ready to go, sitting back, looking for the right property at the right price and swoop that up. And you can't compete with that when they're coming in with that kind of cash. So that's why, you said interest rates as high as 8 nines. Guess what, guys? That's not the worst. If you look back at the highs of interest rates, there was a time where 10% was acceptable. Matter of fact, and I've said this before, my first property, I thought 6.5 was excellent for a 30-year fix, and I had a 730 credit score. Crazy. And it was perfectly acceptable as long as you can afford it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So never look at those numbers as like, I'm stuck with that the rest of my life of this loan, because the hopes would be that you
Mm-hmm.
educate yourself, watch the market as it changes. Mac, very
Yeah.
well. Talk to your lender if there's opportunity to refinance at some point, but it's being prepared because, like you said, how are you going to match up against these huge investment firms?
Right. And that's where we're currently sitting, right? And this is what we really think is going to happen. The rates are going to settle. They're going to come back down. They're not going to stay this high forever. That's apparent, right? If we look at any long-term trends of the real estate market and the home loan market, we're going to see it go down. What's going to happen is the rates are going to go down. The home right now values are already dropping, right? But they're not going to drop as much as people think they're going to drop. They're going to drop, but then what's going to happen is as soon as the rates get to a place that makes sense, all of these investors are going to buy into the market and they're going to price you guys out. They're going to drive the prices back up. And everybody thinks, oh, I'm just going to wait till the house prices get down. That's what I'm going to do. No, they're going to go down a little bit. Might be the best time for you to buy. And they're going to get driven back up with these billion-dollar funds that are going to be buying up residential properties. Not to mention that there's currently builders that are building properties to not rent to own, rent to rent. So actually, I think they're calling it build to rent. So they'll let you pick the specs out. They'll let you say, oh, yeah, this is what you're going to get. And then you're just going to be a renter for them, right?
Right.
So we not only have this side buying up what you do want, we have this side that's building new homes that are essentially saying, well, half of our inventory, you can't even own them. We're only going to rent them, right? Does that sound like a market that's going to crash? No, that sounds like a market that's going to get bought up. You're going to get chewed out if you're not preparing now. And, we're talking about this a lot, but when the rates were going down to 5 and then 4 and then 3 and then 2, and we're telling people this is the time to buy, this is the time to buy. No, it's going to go lower. No, this isn't the time. This isn't the time. Like, no matter what market we're in, there's always going to be somebody that says this isn't the time, right? So take some advice here. Let us help you out. Let us prepare you. So we don't think the market's going to crash, but we understand this is a crazy difficult time to buy for people, right? We get how expensive it is. We understand where the rates are putting us. We're at a 20-year high, 7%. Even for, loans that are a little more favorable, it's still very high. So we get this might not actually be the time for you to buy, but Jesus, you got to
So,
prepare because it's going to get worse.
Right. And then I just want to point out, let's not lose sight of the fact that we are in a recession and everything, the cost of everything is just crazy. It feels like, you barely can afford your groceries or gas or whatnot. So you have to factor in those costs at the same time. You touched on a point, you know, in your personal life experiences, the value of money and how far the dollar will take you. So, as all understanding, living in California, the cost of living itself is very expensive, let alone the cost to buy a home,
Mm,
right? So, then perhaps you have to realign your thinking expectations. As a realtor, I'm going to touch on this because it's very important to be reasonable about, well, here's what my dream home looks like, but here's the reality of what I can't afford.
right.
And once you can start realigning your thinking too, as far as expectations, and really see it mapped out on paper. So this is how much I feel comfortable and I can't afford with all my bills, my utilities. We talk about this when we
Hmm.
meet with buyers, right? Aside from my mortgage, my insurance, all these things. So then that might slightly change the areas I'm looking at to buy or the size home.
Right.
So those are my two tidbits. And if we realign our thinking, you may be a lot closer than you think
Hmm.
as far as being ready to buy
Yeah.
once you position yourself,
Yeah.
if you have a realistic point of view of what
Yeah.
your expectations are.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And to that, a lot of Californians, and this is, I think, just the way America is, right? We're very, we're very Americentric. We very much are on the highest level of self, right? What's going to happen with me? It's not about really community as much, and it's understandable that people maybe don't understand. But when you hear this, hopefully this will bring some light into your eyes and be like, "Oh, that makes sense." California, the state of California, not the country, not the United States, California is in the top 10 economies in the world. That means California beats out countries for how much business, how much commerce we do through this state. So why wouldn't you think that this is would be an expensive place to live? It's just the same as being like, I want to live in the Fab 40s, right? Well, if you want to
Right.
live in the Fab 40s, you're going to pay a premium. You're gonna be paying a lot, like in not only just in getting the house, but like everything's gonna be more expensive there. And that's what living in California is. You're living in these $1 million, it's the $1 million, multi-million dollar state, right? So you have to understand that this is just a tough state to buy a home in general, but for a reason. We live in Sacramento. In Sacramento alone, we're 2 hours away from the beach, the desert, the city, right? The ocean, like the mountains. We get all climates. I mean, this is the most unique place, or at least one of the most unique places in the world you could live. It's expensive to get that, right? So keep that in mind. Understand. I think that we've hit the nail on the head here, and we're going to jump in. Lisa, why don't we talk a little bit about our community breakdown? This week, we're talking about El Dorado. So why don't you tie us in?
Absolutely. So, yeah, speaking of El Dorado, I always think about the El Dorado Hills, and this is just so funny because I didn't even know like Sacramento County had hills until I went out that way. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a whole new world. Um, yeah, so if you're thinking about that area, um, and if you guys have ever visited over there, beautiful, it's more country. Up on the hilltops are like $1 million homes, beautiful views. I've been in a few and I'm just like, it's breathtaking,
Right.
especially right here, right? That's more of like Placer County, but they're sitting at a population of like over 194,000, which is pretty
Yeah.
huge. I didn't realize they
Hmm.
had that many up there. Um, in particular, I think when I think about areas and what's important to people, we might want to talk or touch on schools,
Mm.
right? I know like I raised a family, I still have a little one. It is important to me to know the community and what kind of schools, what's the ranking. So over there, they do have like El Dorado Union High School, is in their school district. And so when I was looking up, their rankings, they're actually ranked 78.2 on the California average for passing rates for high school graduations. AP participation was 35%.
That's pretty
I was like,
high.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking that for AP. So that's like, when you think about your students and they're not just at average, they're above average in preparation for college prep. I was like,
Mm.
that's pretty good for public schooling, right?
Yeah, well, even
And then on
being
the,
ranked in like the top 70%, right, of high schools in the state is pretty high, right? Almost 80s. That's pretty
yeah,
high. So,
I was like impressed actually by that because I've always felt like where I raised my kids was Elk Grove and their school district was pretty good. But I was
mhm.
like, all right, so I see you, Sacramento and Placer County.
Mhm.
Also, El Dorado has Creekside Charter School. It made me start looking into charter schools because I'm a little more curious these days as far as what do they have to offer and what is different in comparison to like a private school or
Mm,
just regular public school. I mean, they're not necessarily considered private,
mm,
but they do kind of have a more focused curriculum. And I do have a friend that did work for a charter school, so she kind of gave me insight too.
mhm.
But what was interesting is they're ranked in the top 1%. And this one is called Creekside Charter. Top
Wow.
1% for reading and math proficiency. That's freaking awesome for
Yeah.
kids. And I know that because I have a little one. And especially when you had your little ones like start enter kindergarten through COVID,
Mm,
it's been just a mess trying to get them up to par.
mhm.
No, seriously, the experience was just like crazy in comparison to your child being in a classroom setting,
Right.
listening to the teacher, absorbing. Now we're all kind of backtracking, trying to get them back on track and get them up to that. So, I mean, I was pretty impressed with those rankings. I mean, I know you're a schoolboy and textbook and you've done all the education and numbers matter to you
Yeah.
too. You're a numbers guy. But then also for elementary in general, it's like 85 to 86% was their proficiency rankings.
Mhm.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
I
then
mean, I
reading.
am a big education. My wife and I are both very big education people. And so to see
Yeah.
these sort of numbers coming out of El Dorado Hills is very impressive because a lot of people think that the more rural the area, the worse the schools are. And that's not always the case, right? And granted, El Dorado Hills has a lot of money, so I would hope that their schools are doing pretty well. But still, nonetheless, it's definitely something to consider when thinking about the El Dorado community, and we really want people to understand, the what if you have a family, and this is in a lot of people move to El Dorado because it's family community. These are good things to understand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, if you guys want to delve in a little deeper as far as what the community has to offer, homes available currently on the market, absolutely. I'd be more than happy, Mac would be more than happy to talk to you, do a one-on-one. But one point, also on a fun note, they have an Oktoberfest, coming up
Mm,
month. So they feature like, food trucks, music, a bunch of different venues. I think that's something fun. When I think anything out that way, and I don't know exactly where it's at, but Apple Hill, like I
mm.
think Placer County. Have you ever been out to Apple Hill?
Yeah, I mean, man, I'm the worst. I just don't like, I don't care about going to like look at apples.
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
really eat desserts. I'm not really big on sugar in general. And so I'm really kind of the worst person to go do that with. Don't invite me. I don't want to go. My wife will go. She'll love it. We have a lot of friends that love Apple Hill. But it is, I will give you this. We went last year, I believe, when, around Christmas time, or I should say the
Hmm.
holiday season. And the Christmas trees are out there. And I will say
Yeah.
I love nature and I love the smells. And that's one of the nice things. All the Christmas trees and all just the fresh air. You kind of leave Sac a little bit and you're like, oh, I guess this is what breathable air is like. That's pretty sweet.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I really just love, yeah, the ambiance and the views
Mm-hmm.
are like beautiful to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of reminds me of Sonoma County and Sebastopol.
Yeah.
So to me, that like touches a soft spot. So I love going out there, but I feel you on that. I'm not a huge sugar person either, but I think it's more of like the experience.
Yeah.
I just enjoy. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
just a few points.
Yeah. I like it. So yeah, and the one thing about El Dorado Hills that I it sort of holds a special part of my heart is I coached up there a little bit. I had some buddies who were head swim coaches out there with Taz, which is a competitive team out there, and they're one of the best teams out there, and I got to do some coaching. So I got to do drive out there and spend some time out there. And I had done coaching in Folsom, and I really enjoyed that. But it would just did feel a bit different going into El Dorado, and so I really do like that area, and I think it's definitely somewhere to consider.
Absolutely. So, Mac, in conclusion, today's episode, we kind of talked about a lot of different things. What can our listeners look forward to?
Well, guys, just so you know, Mac will be traveling. So I will be in and out for a while. We're going to figure out what the rest of this year is going to look like, and we're going to do our best to really kind of bring you guys what you need. But we are going to let you guys know. And what we realize we haven't been doing, and people have been bringing this up, is a more clear way on how do you get a hold of us, right? So, Lisa, why don't you tell us what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Honestly, you guys, you can DM me on my listings underscore by Lisa, and that's on IG or Facebook. It's literally my first and last name, Lisa Velgas. Type it in, I'll pop up. You can DM me. Again, those are probably the best ways, and I do get a lot of inquiries that way. So
Mm.
I find that. Otherwise, there's traditional email too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, email is always good. And I have a website, macthemortgageman.com, and I really think that's probably one of the best ways. It has all my contact information, has information about me and our team, things like that. And so, definitely a good way to get a hold of us. Again, this is the time to start preparing. Really, any time is the time to start preparing, but now, right? If you can do it now, start doing it now. But we're really excited to continue to bring you guys content. We're going to continue to do that because we're not leaving the market. We're not going anywhere. So you have somebody that you can trust, somebody that you can rely on, and bring you the information you need to be successful in this market. If you guys are interested, we do have some opportunities, some free stuff. Lisa can help you guys with a analysis of any area that you want to be in Sacramento, as well as I can help you with the credit report analysis. So let's get that lined up. If you guys don't know, you get a free credit report every single year. And you really should be looking at that to make sure nobody's stolen your identity. And so, yeah, I know it's crazy. And so, thank you guys for listening. This has been What's Good Sacramento, and you guys have a great weekend.
bye.